Have you ever given up on something before you even had the chance to fail? Maybe you wanted to speak, apply, ask, try. You were almost ready. And then a little voice inside your head said, "What if I can't do it?" So you didn't. Nothing went wrong. Nobody laughed. Nobody rejected you. You didn't fail. And yet, somehow you still lost something. Why? Let's talk about it. Number one, sometimes not trying feels safer than failing. Imagine a student sitting in class. The teacher asks a question. He knows the answer. Actually, he's almost sure. For a moment, he thinks about raising his hand. Then his mind starts. What if I'm wrong? What if everyone looks at me? What if I sound stupid? So his hand stays down. A few seconds later, another student raises theirs and gives almost exactly the same answer. The teacher says, "Exactly." And he sits there, thinking, "I knew that." Number two, avoiding failure can feel like success. Nothing embarrassing happened. Nobody judged him. Nobody heard him say something wrong. And for a moment, he feels relieved. That's what makes this cycle so difficult. Because avoidance doesn't always feel bad. Sometimes it feels wonderful. The fear disappears and the mind quietly learns. That worked. Next time, the teacher asks a question. The same solution becomes even easier. Stay quiet. Number three, then something slowly changes. At first, he thinks, "I'm afraid to speak." But after enough time, the sentence changes. "I'm not good at speaking." Then, "I'm just a quiet person." Eventually, the fear that once felt temporary starts sounding like personality. And this is where a small habit can become something much bigger. Because once we believe, "This is who I am," we stop asking whether we could change. Number four, a safe life can slowly become a smaller life. Years pass. The classroom becomes the meeting room. He has an idea, a good one, but someone else speaks first, so he stays quiet. There's a job he'd love to apply for, but the description asks for things he isn't sure he can do, so he doesn't apply. There's someone he wants to know better, but he doesn't know what to say, so he says nothing. Again, nothing terrible happens. No rejection, no embarrassment, no failure. His life is safe, but slowly, the boundaries of that life are being drawn by everything. He's afraid to try. Number five, if we never try, reality can never prove fear wrong. This may be the strangest part. He believes he isn't good at speaking, but how many times has he actually allowed himself to speak? He believes he wouldn't get the job, but he never applied. He believes that person wouldn't be interested, but he never asked. Fear makes a prediction. Avoidance prevents the experiment. And then the absence of experience somehow becomes evidence that the prediction was right. Number six, eventually we stop calling it fear. We call it who we are. I'm just not confident. I'm not a people person. I'm not the kind of person who does things like that. And perhaps sometimes those sentences are true. We all have different personalities, different strengths, different preferences. But sometimes that's just who I am isn't really a description of who we are. Sometimes it's the story we created after years of avoiding the chance to discover who else we might have been. Here's something worth remembering. The next time fear asks, "What if I try?" and fail, maybe there's another question worth asking. What if I never try? What if nothing terrible happens? No rejection, no embarrassment, no failure, but years later, you look back and realize something else didn't happen either. The conversation, the opportunity, the relationship, the version of yourself you never got to meet. Because sometimes the greatest cost of fear isn't that it makes us fail. It's that it can keep us so safe from failure that we never discover what we were capable of. Maybe you don't need to know that you'll succeed. Maybe for the first step, it's enough to allow reality to finally give you an answer.